Hello, everybody from Montville. This is Miss Jessica coming to you for our fairy tale weekly story time. Today I am going to read the book Sleeping Beauty. This is actually the original Sleeping Beauty. It's not the Disney version, but this is how Disney came up with their Sleeping Beauty. So here it is. On the cover we have the prince, and we of course have Sleeping Beauty. Hopefully you will enjoy the original Sleeping Beauty. Of course, it's very much like the Disney version. So here are some of the beautiful paintings. Let's put this a little closer so you can see. Here she is sleeping. Here's the castle. Here's the king with, of course, the baby who will become Sleeping Beauty. Once upon a time, there lived a king and a queen who had no children. Every day they said to each other, "Oh, if only we could have a child." But they never did. Now one day, while the queen was bathing, a frog hopped out of the water and told her, "Your wish will be granted. You will have a daughter before the year's over." It turned out just as the frog had said. The queen had a baby, such a beautiful little girl, that the king was beside himself with joy. He decided to hold a great banquet. As well as inviting his family, friends, and acquaintances, he asked the wise woman of his kingdom to come and wish the child well. There were 13 wise women, and they were to eat from golden plates. But as there was only 12 plates, one of them was not invited. The banquet was held, and it was splendid. When it was over, the wise women gave the baby their magic gifts. One gave her goodness, another beauty, a third wealth, and so on, until she had everything in the world that you could wish for. And there's that little baby in the middle. When 11 of the wise women had given their gifts, the 13th suddenly walked in. She wanted her revenge for not being invited, and without greeting or even looking at anyone, she said in a loud voice, "When the king's daughter is 15, she will prick her finger on a spindle and fall down dead." Then, without another word, she turned and left the banquet hall. As the guests stood there horrified, out stepped the 12th wise woman, who had yet not given her a gift. She could not break the wicked spell, but only soften it. So she said, "The king's daughter will not die, but fall asleep, and she will sleep for 100 years. Hoping to keep his daughter from such a fate, the king ordered that all the spindles in the kingdom be burnt. As for the little girl herself, all the wishes the wise woman had made for her came true. She was so beautiful, good, kind, and clever that everyone who set eyes on her loved her. It so happened that on the very day of her 15th birthday, the king and queen were not at home, and the princess was alone in the castle. She explored the whole place, going from room to room just as she liked, until at last she came to an old tower. She climbed the narrow spiral staircase and found a little door. There was a rusty key in the lock, and when she turned it, the door opened. She saw a small room and an old woman sitting inside of it, with a spindle busy spinning flax. "Good day," said the princess. "What are you doing?" "I'm spinning," said the old woman, nodding her head. "What's that jumping about?" asked the girl. She took the spindle to try spinning a thread herself, but no sooner had she touched it than the magic spell came true, and she pricked her finger. The moment she felt it, she fell on the bed in the room, and a deep sleep came over her. So here she is, falling asleep. The same deep sleep overcame the whole castle. The king and the queen, who had just come home and entered the great hall, fell asleep, and the entire court with them. The horses slept in the stable, the dogs in the yard, the doves on the roof, the flies on the wall, even the fire flickering on the hearth burned low and slept, while the meat roasting on the spit stopped crackling, and the cook, who had been about to box the kitchen boy's ears, fell asleep with his hand in the air. Then the wind itself died down, and not a leaf stirred on the trees outside the castle. So here they all are, sleeping just as they were, whether they're singing or playing or whatever they were doing. Soon, a thorny hedge began to grow around the castle. It grew higher and higher every year, until at last it surrounded the whole castle, towering above it so that there was nothing to be seen, not even the flag on the rooftop. As the years passed, the country folk told tales of the lovely Sleeping Beauty, for that was what they called the king's daughter. From time to time, princes came and tried to get through the hedge into the castle beyond, but they never could, for the thorns clung fast together as if they had hands. When the young men were caught up in them, they could not get free, and they would die. After many, many long years, yet another prince came to that country and met an old man who told him about the thorny hedge and the castle that was said to lie beyond it. A lovely princess called Sleeping Beauty had been asleep there for 100 years, said the old man, and all the princes who tried to break through the hedge was caught in the thorns and died. I am not afraid, said the prince. I will go there and see the lovely Sleeping Beauty. And however much the old man advised him not to do it, he would not listen. But it so happened that the 100 years were over, and the day had come for Sleeping Beauty to wake up. When the prince reached the hedge, it was covered with big, beautiful flowers instead of thorns, and it opened of its own accord to let him through unharmed, closing into a hedge behind him. In the castle courtyard, he saw the horses and the spotted hounds lying asleep, and the doves sitting on the roof with their heads tucked under their wings. When he entered the castle, the flies were asleep on the wall. The cook in the kitchen still had his hand raised, and the maid servant was sitting with a black chicken ready for plucking. The prince went on and saw the whole court lying asleep in the great hall, with the king and the queen by the throne. He went further on, and it was all so still that he could actually hear his own breath. At last he came to the tower and opened the door into the little room where Sleeping Beauty lay. She was so beautiful that the prince could not take his eyes off of her. He bent down and gave her a kiss. And as soon as he kissed her, Sleeping Beauty opened her eyes, woke up, and gazed lovingly at him. They went down the stairs together. The king and the queen woke up, so did the court, all staring at one another wide-eyed. And the horses out in the yard, they stood up, they shook themselves off. The hounds leaped up, they wagged their tails. The doves on the roof took their heads out from under their wings, looked around, and they flew away. The flies went on crawling up the walls. The fire on the kitchen hearth flared up. The meat began roasting on the spit again, began to crackle. The cook, of course, boxed the boy's ears, and the maidservant went on plucking the chicken. They all continued their jobs. Then, the wedding of the prince and Sleeping Beauty was celebrated with great magnificence, and they lived, of course, happily ever after. Looks like they have fireworks on their wedding day. So I hope you enjoyed that story. And again, Disney likes to take their stories and their prince and their princesses stories from some of the original older fairy tales. So this is one of those original older fairy tales. So I hope you enjoyed that, boys and girls. Have a wonderful week, and hopefully I will see you in the library very soon. Bye, everybody.